Marsh Lane, so it's in Scarborough.
Northeast Derbyshire, South Yorkshire, right at the border. Just at the Sheffield.
What, they're trying to frack that?
Yeah, you've got Marsh Lane, which is just at Sheffield, and you go
What I'm joking, I'm right near York.
Oh, you're joking, yeah, why not?
Do you know, Jan? What the problem is? She can fucking just go to free thing.
He said he was saving the batteries.
Yeah. This place is called Maritz PR.
Number 2.
I'll introduce you.
Isaac. Send me a stage money.
That's my compost. We didn't need all
And
that.
now,
That's okay.
the end is near. Just good afternoon, it's here. Yeah, I've got to afternoon, haven't we? Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Stephen Hall. I'm involved in Unite the Union. I'm also president of Greater Manchester Association of Church Councils, and the first thing I'd like to do is give this best wishes and solidarity of the trade union movement of Greater Manchester and wider in the North West to today's event. Now, I'm usually asked to speak at events like this on issues such as a 1 million climate job, which I speak on all over the place. But before I talk about that, I just wanted to raise a couple of issues concerning the police. As I say, I come from Greater Manchester, where we at one time used to have a chief constable called James Anderton, who used to talk to God on his way to work. If you remember him.
Yeah.
And also on the side of the vehicles they used to have to serve and protect. And I thought that's what policing in this country was about. It was about to serve and protect the community. And I'm also told we have this thing called policing by consent. And all I'm questioning from you guys in the police force is how, when the local council have turned down this application for this thing, when the people are against it, how what you're doing here today and every other day can possibly be policing by consent. And how on earth you can be saving and protecting the community because you're not doing that, clearly, in my book. So that's the first thing there. The second thing is, I don't like mentioning this, right, but I'm a Bolton Wanderers fan, me. And when we're in the Premiership, I certainly know Premiership teams, like Manchester United, Liverpool, the policing around their grounds, in addition to the rates and council taxes, whatever, that Man United pay to the local, whatever it is, Trafford Council, because they're not actually in Manchester, are they? They pay for all the policing around their grounds on match day. And I would have think it's added insult to injury, the fact that not only are you not policing this area by consent, but people like Cuadrilla here are not getting a bill for the policing that you're doing here today but in fact you're asking the people who haven't given you consent to fork up the bill for the policing as well. So I think that's absolutely scandalous, and obviously we'll be taking that up. Be good to know though that you're getting a pay rise this year, lads, but they won't be giving any more money in the police budget, so to come off cutting something else. It's a pity you're not going out catching burglars today and rapists, and instead you're here. Because what's happening here is indefensible. Now, I've been involved in this dispute, in this struggle against fracking for some time now. I can't remember how many years it is now. 7 years is it, right? And I used to always speak, because I was from the trade unions, and the trade unions were considered supportive of fracking, and obviously we have people amongst us who are supportive of fracking. I used to manage and I was lucky to get on the platform. And by the time I'd done that, you'd think everything that possibly could be said about fracking had already been said by the people beforehand. They talked about how it would pollute the water, it would pollute the air, earthquakes, smoke subsidence, everything that you could possibly think of. And I got to a point, and I come from an area, Aberton, it's a former coal mining area, and when I was environmental, people said, Steve, you know, if you look around here, we just had open cast mining around there for the last 50 years, and before that, we were 200 years of coal mining. It's a shithole. Why are you so bothered about environment? So really, the environmental argument doesn't touch the same where I live in a farm industrial area of Lancashire, as it may do with some people. And the big thing has always been about jobs. So I always took the line as what I would say. We shouldn't be for this, we should be against this, shouldn't be for it, and we don't need it, even if it was safe with knobs on. Right? It's clearly not safe with knobs on. Right? It's clearly a disaster waiting to happen for all the reasons that we can probably write, vast tracts of works on why it's an environmental disaster waiting to happen. But I'm going to argue today, not only do we not need it, we shouldn't want it, we shouldn't do that, even if it was safe with knobs on. It's madness. Now, what I usually talk about is this thing, the 1 million climate jobs report, simply produced by a group of trade unionists. It's now supported by a number of unions nationally, including my own, Unite the Union, the PCS Union, Transport Salaried Staff Association, National Union of Students, the University College Union, which is University Lecturers, College Lecturers, the Fire Brigade Union, the Communications Workers Union, that's your post office workers, and the Bakers Union. I remember speaking to them, their national executive, to get them on side with this as well. And what it says is, not only do we not need fracking, we shouldn't want fracking, which will say I can put a better case for reopening coal-fired power stations to fight climate change, which is obviously a ridiculous idea, but I can put a better case for reopening coal-fired power stations than you can for fracking. This will create considerably more jobs than this will. Because at the end of the day, when all you lot have gone here, there'll be a few security jobs. In fact, it's probably created more jobs for coppers securing the place than will actually come out of this in the long run. Because the people who bring the trucks full of water will go from one well to one well, same with drillers, and I say there'll be very, very few jobs. It'll probably be more for security that stop people trying to break in place than it will create jobs in this area. The 1 million climate jobs report here, which I've got with me, you can get it online. If you just look up 1 million climate jobs on Google, you can download, I think, the older version. It's actually got a case study in it for the Fylde, Blackpool and Wire area that says what we're proposing here could create 4,500 jobs in this area. So that's, Fleetwood, Blackpool, this area, in developing, doing what? Well, developing renewable energies, which ultimately, at the end of the day, is the solution to our long-term energy needs as a country. This thing, even if it was safe, is a finite resource and they'll be gone in 30 years. The future lies in things like the sun, which at last count, I was told, will be around in 4.6 billion years, which I think is a bit longer than the gas that we're going to get out of here. And the sea off our coast, we have some of the highest tides in the world, and the wind as well, with some of the windiest coastline. And the actual case study in this pamphlet refers to an offshore wind array off Blackpool, which would create something like 3,000 jobs. That's actually installing it, making the turbines, long-term maintenance, and also here's a big one that will create jobs, and I'm sure you'll all think this is outrageous an idea. How on earth can somebody think this is not, you know, and it's going round and insulating people's homes. It's going round doing energy surveys in streets, advising people on how they can put in more lighting, you know, energy efficient bulbs and appliances, insulating the walls, putting solar panels maybe on the roof, or a ground source heat pump, earth source heat pump, something like that, which will reduce the amount of energy we need to produce in the first place. And that will save everybody in country money on the gas electricity bills. Now, please put your hand up if you don't want to save money on your gas electricity bills. Come on, all you police guys. This won't save you a penny on your gas electricity bills. Our proposals will. And instead of giving vouchers out to companies like Warm Seal, where you can ring up and they'll give you 200 quid towards doing this, what we're proposing is a service that basically will go from street to street throughout the country, and it'll do every single house in the country, street by street. We'll also insulate all public buildings, things like that's what we're proposing. And obviously one of the big chunks of it is developing our renewable energy capacity. Now we can increase our renewable energy capacity, and we can reduce the amount of energy that we're using. We can squeeze fossil fuels out of the equation, and that's what this is proposed us to do. Not only that, it proposes to develop and expand public transport. The answer to congestion on our roads, to air pollution and to other problems with motoring isn't electric cars ultimately in the long run. It's better public transport. It's integrated and massively improved public transport. And that's one of the things our proposals in this pamphlet will do, is provide cheaper, more efficient public transport that will help get people out the cars, onto cycles, whatever form of transport, that we should be fully integrated. And we're also into encouraging more agriculture. Now, one thing that this is going to potentially do is destroy jobs in agriculture in this area by polluting the environment, and also, you know, well, God knows what its impact can be on raising cattle or whatever. And what we're proposing to do is grow more food in this country than we're currently doing. That's another proposal. There's also lots of jobs to be created in training and educating people in the skills that will be required to do all these things that we're proposing. It's not rocket science, and it will cost us £20 billion a year. Fully costed out, that's what Tories like. Fully costed out, nothing costed out. They said nothing in Tory manifesto other than page numbers in terms of workings. This is a fully worked out, costed programme, 20 billion. Now, if you think how much it costs to bail the banks out, which if you do a search on Google Independent said cost up to £1 trillion, this is a small fraction of that amount to put 1 million people into decently paid work. That includes your kids, you know, Mr. Policeman, and everybody else's, doing jobs that will improve our ability to resist climate change. Because one of the things, people think climate change is not happening. Have you been watching news recently, or what? Right? More erratic weather and whatever, like we've seen over the last few weeks, is going to get potentially worse. And I'm totally convinced, I mean, I'm not got a degree in climate change or anything, but I'm convinced that climate change is happening and we need to do something about it. And not doing something about it, we don't save money, we just store up future costs down the line. And that's what Nicholas Stern, Lord Stern, said in his review for Gordon Brown, who was commissioned to do a report for our last government that basically could potentially cost us up to 20 times more in 10 years' time, got to do anything. And I always use a simple example about, you know, somebody comes to your house, says your house, the roof's buggered, it's going to cost you £1,000, fix it now, or you can ignore it and let it go on, and in 10 years' time it's going to cost you 20 grand. Most sane people would even take the loan out now to fix the roof now, rather than incur 20 times the expense 10 years down the line. And yet that is what we're doing. People are putting off these decisions because it's outside their term of office and they don't give a shit about it. Sorry, pardon the expression. So my view is not only this 20 billion, it's how can we not afford it, right? How can we not afford this money? And we could do this, I'm certainly campaigning within my union and some of others there to make this official Labour Party policy so that when we go into the general election, when we have one obviously sooner rather than later, Labour is committed to this. I know the Green Party are already support this policy, so good on the Green Party for doing so. It's a result of your party actually doing it, and trade unions like myself, that we have now created sufficient critical mass, I think in the near future, to make this official Labour Party policy as well, right? As far as I can see, it's a vote winner, it's going to win Labour votes, create 1 million jobs. There's no other party talking about creating jobs of that magnitude, which would remove any necessity for this monstrosity over here, which will create hardly any jobs and potentially is a catastrophe waiting to happen. So, solidarity with you again today. We will be up doing more action as much as we can, trade unions. The Trades Council movement, which I'm part of, is all in your areas. If you're not already in touch with it, you should get in touch with them locally, because they can help provide the funding for you to get to places like this and for local campaigning in your community. So, you know, feel free to talk to me after, but keep up the fight and eventually we'll win this one.
That was Stephen Hall speaking about 1 million climate jobs. Whatever you stand on climate and everything else, why would it be wrong to get 1 million climate jobs?